I got it too, just in case. All right.
Alrighty, we are live with the Red Sox series recap number 6. We just finished up a 2-game set against the Toronto Blue Jays. Today, I'm once again joined by my good friend Ricky. Ricky, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Not bad. Hanging in there.
There we go. Oh yeah, by the way, welcome back to In Depth with David. I forgot to lead off with that. But yeah, what were your thoughts on how this series went between the Sox and the Jays? Just general takeaways, because I don't want anyone to hate us again for spoiling it in the first minute of the show.
Yeah, all I'll say, just to not bury the lead, as he said last podcast, kind of if you watched the last podcast, what we discussed at the end is pretty much what happened. As you can tell from my name, which is Richard, I changed it to Richards Isn't Good. We'll elaborate upon that. We did get a stellar performance from Erod. We can definitely touch upon that too. That was solid. Eduardo Rodriguez, that's what we want from him. Great to see him pitching better. Yeah, just the series was pretty much as we expected. I don't want to, reveal the results or anything. Obviously, if you've seen the games, you know what happened. But yeah, so I guess we can just get into it and discuss it. But it was a short series, but there were definitely some positives and some negative takeaways for sure to talk about. So we'll definitely cover a lot. So
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with the whole look at what we said at the end of the last podcast. That was really predictable. We both kind of predicted how the series was going to go. I feel like any regular average watching Red Sox fan probably could have seen the series coming from a mile away, but we'll get into it nonetheless. Game 1, Red Sox Blue Jays. The pitching matchup was Eduardo Rodriguez versus their ace Hyunjin Ryu. I believe he used to pitch for the Dodgers for a while, Ryu, before he came over to the Jays. Sounds about right.
I think so, yeah.
So this was actually a pretty quick game. I don't know if you noticed that, but it was only 2 hours and 45 minutes. Obviously that's what baseball wants. You want to keep the games as short as possible because we're trying to attract more millennial and Gen Z viewers to the game. So this game was kind of fun to watch. I mean, the fact that it was over quickly too isn't bad because, I mean, me and you can both relate or attest to the fact that, well, we love watching baseball. Some of the games do drag on, and it gets harder to keep watching it as it approaches like the 3.5 hour mark. But we'll get into this. So nothing really happened in the first 3 innings. If we jump ahead to the 4th, in the top of the 4th, Bo Bichette, one of the great young players for the Blue Jays, launches a homer into the Green Monster seats to make it 1-0 Toronto. And then in the 4th, madness ensues for the Sox. Typical trademarked inning, big inning this year. It's been the theme of the Sox. Christian Arroyo, JD Martinez lead off the inning with back-to-back singles, and then Xander Bogaerts finally gets his first home run of the 2021 campaign right into the monster seats. It's 3-1 Red Sox already. Then later in the 4th inning, Marwin Gonzalez gets a double, and then Bobby Dahlbeck triples to make it 4-1. Never thought I'd be talking about, or at least I didn't think I'd be talking about for a little bit, Bobby Dahlbeck hitting a triple, but hey, I'll take it. I mean,
nice.
Definitely a good display of hitting. And then after that, in the 7th inning is kind of where we think, I remember we texted about this. By the way, this is a really quick game to recap, and this is probably going to be one of our quicker recaps of the season because there was only 2 games, but going back to the 7th inning, I think this was Alex Cora's first mistake of the season, letting Erod come back out for another inning because, as you can see, it was already a 4-1 ball game. Erod's pitch count is it was pretty high at that point, but you still could have thrown him out for another inning. So I get what Cora was doing, but right away, Randall Grichuk for the Jays homers off Erod to lead off the 7th, making it 4-2, and that's when Cora pulls him. So do you think that was a mistake? Are you with me on that, where it's probably not the right move to bring Erod out again?
Yeah, I think he was already in like the upper 80s for his pitch count, low 90s at that point anyway. I think, what was this? That was like the 7th inning at that point. So the game was going quick. Erod pitched a good game, but at that point, like you said, like I definitely think that was a bit of a mistake because honestly, he could have just he only pitched, again, a couple pitches and the home run. So I don't know. I think it would have been better if he just went with the bullpen. I believe he put in Ottavino after that.
Which we'll get to him, yeah. we'll
He
talk.
could have put in Ottavino to start the 7th and just or someone else in the pen and just went with that, honestly. So yeah.
For sure. So Erod's day is over, or night is over. He went 6 innings, or 6+ innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, and 6 strikeouts. Just great to see him putting together another quality start. We talked about it before in prior podcasts. What he went through last year was definitely something scary, developing a heart condition because of COVID, and he hasn't pitched in a year and a half. But for him to come back and continue to pitch quality start after quality start, it's really encouraging.
Yeah, for sure. I was really glad to see it too. Well, I think I've really been most excited coming into the season. I think I was most excited to see how he would play because I really liked him as a pitcher prior to obviously everything that happened, and I was really wishing the best for him medically. And I'm glad to see games like this definitely showed that Erod is definitely coming back into form and looking like his older self, which is good to see. I really hope the same for Chris Sale gradually when he gets back. I know they actually cut multiple times to Erod and Sale talking in the dugout, which I thought was great to see. I'm glad Sale's getting involved with things, and I'm glad to see too. I'm just glad to see Evaldi. Not Evaldi. Same thing with him, but I'm just glad to see some of the guys that were key on that 2018 team, coming back around again. It's just good to see because the Red Sox pitching definitely needed to improve. And I think, as we've discussed in the past, Evaldi and Erod have definitely been solid 1-2 options for this team. So yeah, I'm glad he pitched as well as he did. Obviously, that second earned run was off the home run, which again, like we just said, that was kind of a mistake on Cora's part. It honestly could have been prevented. So in some ways, I only kind of say he gave up 1 run, but technically 2 because analytics. But yeah, it is what it is. So, but yeah, great start, honestly.
Right, and then Ottavino comes in the 8th inning. If we just skip ahead a bit, Matt Andrees, another guy who we've kind of been given a hard time, came in the 7th and just took care of business. And then we get to Ottavino, and I got to say it, I feel like he's performing better because we talk trash about him in our podcast.
Yep. Yeah, the redemption tour continues. Yep, I definitely agree.
Yeah, I mean, he had a walk in the inning, I think, but I don't really care. I mean, he gave up no runs, did his thing. I think Boston sports analysts use this term, so they abuse this term where they always say, "Oh, we're rounding a corner, we're rounding a corner." I'm starting to feel like Ottavino's kind of rounding the corner a bit. Minnesota, I mean, we keep bringing it up. I don't know why I hate talking about it, but Ottavino in Minnesota did not look good at all. And before that in Baltimore, he struggled as well. But last 2 times out, it's been pretty encouraging. So after that, Ottavino, great 8th inning. And then Matt Barnes, once again, has done what he's done all year and closes it out in the 9th. So the Red Sox end up winning 4-2. As we said, 2-hour and 45-minute game. The first 4 or 5 innings just flew by just like that, and just all around good, fun night in Fenway for baseball. So Red Sox end up taking the first game of the series, and then we had to game 2, where your name on the screen is really gonna be a talking point about how Garrett Richards just isn't good. So this game actually started a little late. It was a 31-minute rain delay, so it started at 7:41. Pitching matchup was Garrett Richards versus Trent Thornton. This one was interesting because before we get to Richards, the Jays use this thing called an opener. I don't know if you know what that strategy is, where you take reliever and put him in at the beginning of the game for 1 or 2 innings, and then you go to another pitcher. The Tampa Bay Rays under Chaim Bloom actually started the strategy. But what are your thoughts on that, the whole opener thing? It's made its way into baseball the last few years. Are you a fan of it?
I think it's interesting. I don't know. I think if you're using like a 4-5 starter, I think it's a little more inviting. I don't know. I think it's cool. I definitely know the Rays that were doing that. So yeah, I was kind of surprised Toronto was doing that. But I believe they had in Malone to start the game.
So they had Trent Thornton, but then they went to Malone in the 3rd.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It is. Yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. So
you have a good point though about doing that with a 4 or 5 guy. I feel like you can get away with that more. Like if I see the Red Sox doing that with Chris Sale, like throwing in an opener and then going to Chris Sale, I'm going to be a little confused if that happens over the summer. But I think it makes perfect sense if you're not so sure about how the back end of the rotation is performing, just throw in an opener and then just go to the other guy for 3 or 4 innings. So
they could have done that with Richards, honestly. To be honest, like that might not have been a bad idea with somebody like him. So
for sure. Honestly, I would have liked if we just thrown in like what's his name, Garrett Whitlock. Is that his first name, Garrett? Yeah. If we throw him in for like 2 or 3 innings, or Tanner Hawk, if we could have called him up again, would have rather done that than this just abysmal performance from Garrett Richards. But we'll get into that. So in the first inning, just everything, just the wheels fall off from the get-go. 4-pitch leadoff walk to Kevin Biggio of the Jays. Bo Bichette gets hit by a pitch, and he was not happy about that one. And I don't blame him because Richards just really had trouble with control last night. This one on the pitch that hit Bo, it was like almost up towards his head. So hate to see that. Then Vladdy Guerrero, arguably another young, talented player in the Jays. RBI single to bring in Biggio, makes it 1-0. And then Red Sox get a little bit of luck here in the first where we turn a double play where Richards is covering first. And originally they said he was safe at first, but Alex Cora challenged it. And somehow, some way, I thought he was safe, but the challenge gods are on our side this year. We talked about in recent podcasts how MLB challenges this year have just been abysmal. It's really been terrible across the league. People in New York are just making the wrong calls, but nonetheless, the Red Sox benefit here. It could have been a lot more worse of a first inning, but the Red Sox were able to escape only being down 1-0. And then in the second, jumping back to the Jays being on offense, Marcus Semien singles, and he's able to steal second. Palacios walks, and then a wild pitch forces both of them to advance. And then Gurriel Jr. hits a sac fly to bring in Semien, making it 2-0. And then an RBI ground up by Kevin Biggio, who's the son of legendary Craig Biggio, scores Palacios, makes it 3-0. And then Bo Bichette gets an RBI single. Bo Bichette, like whenever I say his name, I always think of Boba Fett from Star Wars. I don't know if you think of the same thing. It's just a little something funny to me. But anyways, Bo Bichette, RBI single up the middle, scores Danny Jansen later in the inning to make it 4-0. And then Vladdy Guerrero doubles to make it second and third, but nothing else comes out of the inning, thankfully. Just awful first few innings for Garrett Richards. I mean, he just had trouble everywhere, like the whole night. Like we talked about this coming in where we knew in the last podcast, I keep bringing it up, but all right, it's probably going to be an L with Garrett Richards on the mound, but I'd never seen anything like it last night. Like he was just having trouble throwing a strike. Like he was all over the place, even on like the pickoff throws to first. Did you notice that too? Like he was having trouble just throwing it to Bobby. I mean, just terrible.
Yeah, it was a very painful performance. It was honestly getting to the point where like I almost just turned the game off for
me too.
Just because it was so slow. I had like homework or something pulled up in another tab, and I was like, I'm just gonna like work on something and just have it as background noise because this is just really bad. Yeah, like you mentioned too, with that the almost a headshot on Bo Bichette, like that was just horrid. Some of the pitches he was throwing were just everywhere. It was that was a crazy way to start the game for sure. Rough game for Richards.
And I don't know why when he does those pickoff throws, he thinks he needs to throw it 100 miles per hour to Bobby Dahlback. It's like you can just toss it to first to keep them in check, but he did that when Semien was on first, I think in like the second, and he drilled Semien in the ankle. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Just it's like playing soft toss. Like you don't need to hum it at Bobby. I mean, it's going to make him run all over the place, but just nonetheless, just a disaster. And then after the Blue Jays get done with the opener, Trent Thornton, they turn to Tommy Malone. And in the fourth, we jump ahead a bit. JD gets a leadoff double, and then Devers is able to bring him in with an RBI grounder to make it 4-1. Now moving back to Richards, he's done after 4 2/3. He couldn't get the final out of the inning. Do you think the fans were a little too hard on him? Because starting in the first inning when he was having trouble throwing a strike, he started with the 4-pitch walk to lead off the game to what was that guy who was their leadoff, Kevon Biggio. Once that happened, right after he threw his first strike to the very next batter, the fans did a mock cheer, like, "Good job, you finally threw a strike." Like, do you think the fans are being a little bit too hard on Richards, or do you think he deserves it?
I think it's kind of a combination of both. Like it's kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie. Like the mocking of him, and as we kind of are on this podcast, he had a really bad game, an exceptionally bad game. But at the same time, like you kind of, I don't know. It's a little bit. I don't want to throw Yankee fans, but you know what they did where they were throwing baseballs at the Rays players in the outfield. It was almost kind of a Yankee fan level of like classlessness, like. Boston sports fans get a bad rap for a lot of people. That's kind of like a classic Boston thing. But again, I feel like you can boo your own guys if they're having a bad game. You can give them a hard time, but at the same time, it is a little bit humiliating, and sometimes it forms this distaste. The players begin to just not like the fan base or the city they're playing for. I know there's been a lot of Boston athletes in the past who've spoken out against like hating it. And again, it's kind of soft, but at the same time, I think it's a mix of both. Like it is pretty funny, like from a fan's perspective, and he was horrible, but I feel like for him, like, I don't know if that really helps your morale as a pitcher, when your own fans are like, yeah, this guy stinks. So
are you saying, do you think that got to him last night?
I think it might have, honestly, being at Fenway in front of a bunch of people, fans are coming back, and I think he knew himself too that his performance was bad. Like I think that probably did motivate him somewhat. I don't know how, if that's gonna result in him pitching better or whatnot, but I hope so, honestly, because we need him. But I don't know.
See, I'm all for letting the players know when you're not happy with their performance, but they literally booed him in the first inning after he had only faced one batter. Like, I feel like that was a little premature, and I do agree with you in the sense that it probably got to him mentally and may have had an impact on his atrocious performance last night. But, I mean, you got to give him a chance. I feel like Boston fans are notorious for this. Like, when we're not playing well or when a player's not playing well, it's really hard to develop or get a second chance from the fans. We're not really that forgiving, and I feel like Garrett Richards was a victim of that, but I feel bad for him because, I thought it was a little too early. And I mean, we're in the first month of the season. Maybe he can turn it around. I mean, granted, he's not been good so far in his first 3 or 4 starts, but we'll see what happens. So the rest of this game, I mean, it'll get a little interesting. So in the 5th inning, Marwin Gonzalez doubles and Bobby Dahlbeck gets another infield single. He had 2 in this game, weirdly, our first baseman. He beat out. Really, I mean, both of them, you could have made a case that they were errors, but nonetheless, he beat out 2 infield singles. And then Kike Hernandez is able to double down the left field line to score Marwin Gonzalez to make it 4-2. And then the bases get loaded, and this is a great opportunity for the Sox, but Xander Bogaerts grounds out, so that ends the inning. And then in comes the Red Sox reliever, Sawamura. He pitches well in 1 1/3 innings, and then we move ahead more. Marwin Gonzalez is really doing everything he can to keep us in this game. He had a really good game last night. He gets another double, but Dahlbeck grounds out, so he can't do anything about that. And then Darwin Hernandez pitches well in the 8th, or in the 8th inning, I believe he pitched. Let me just check that. Or it might have been Valdez. I get my relievers mixed up. Yeah, I think it was Phillips Valdez. He pitched well in the 8th. And then you want to talk about Xander Bogaerts' homer?
Yeah. Great to see Xander homer twice in this series. He's been hitting excellent. He kind of, again, like most of the team, that first series a little bit, tough. Excuse me. He overcame definitely a bit of a slower start, but if you look at his ranks too in the AL, he's a top tier, like top 5, top 10 player. Definitely one of the best shortstops in the game right now. To see him continue to hit is just really, it's great to see. I love Xander Bogaerts. I think most people in Boston do. He's been on this team for what feels like forever. It's just great. It's great to see it. You love to see it, as people say. I think he was really due for a few big blasts. And I think he's really helpful in bringing guys in and bringing himself in. I feel like he's always, that guy in clutch situations. And although they lost the game overall, it's good.
Spoiler alert.
I'm sorry, I buried the lead. I mean, it's obvious at this point. But yeah, yeah.
It gets weird because the Jays kind of let us. It's almost like they want us to win this game. This is where it gets weird in these later innings. But
It was, yeah.
yeah, so I don't know why I mix up Darwin Hernandez and Felipe Valdez, but Valdez pitched well. That was my mistake. Bogart's homers, as Ricky just talked about, and this was a weird one because this pitch was almost in the dirt. Everyone watching, you can watch the highlights, but he just kind of like golfed this into the monster.
It was kind of weird, but
like I thought this was going to go foul, but once I saw it was carrying, I'm like, okay, this will be off the wall, but it barely sneaked into the first row of the monster. But Bogart's second home run of the series, second home run in as many nights. So now that makes it 4-3. And then right after that, Christian Vasquez walks and Marvin Gonzalez gets on due to an error. I think it was Bo Bichette. It was either Bichette or Biggio who had the throwing error. We talked about this in text last night, how the Jays infielders just had trouble throwing it to Vladdy all night.
Yeah.
So the inning should have been over, but Marwin hits a grounder and gets on due to a bad throw from one of the corner infielders of the Jays. And then a wild pitch from, who's the pitcher for the Jays? It might have been like Tim Meza, I think it was. Moves up Vasquez and Marwin from first and second to second and third. And this is our chance to either take the lead or at least tie it. And we have Dahlbeck at the plate, but he grounds out to end the threat. What are your thoughts on Bobby this year? I mean, he had the coming out party a little bit in Minnesota with the 2 doubles to win us that game in that series. But other than that, I kind of feel like he's just been really non-existent. He's had some singles here and there. I think he had 2 hits in this game, but I'm kind of surprised he hasn't hit a home run yet or shown off that power. What are your thoughts on the Red Sox first baseman so far this year?
Kind of like you just said, he's been pretty average. I wouldn't say he's been bad. His batting average isn't horrible. He's not, not struggling to hit at all. But yeah, like you said, he's mostly hitting singles and doubles or getting walks and stuff. He struggled a bit at first. I mean, not too much. He's done a decent enough job. It's not like he's made a lot of errors or anything. But yeah, I don't know if I would call his season disappointing thus far, because again, we're not done with April yet. But I think if a couple more weeks pass and we don't see much more productivity, it's just kind of the same old decency. I mean, it's going to be a little disappointing. But yeah, like you just said too, I'm really surprised he hasn't hit a homer. I think almost every one of the Sox starters has. So.
Everyone but Cordero, I think, on the roster, or everyone that I can name, I can think of is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see. It's just a lot of people came in thinking Dahlbeck was going to be potentially Rookie of the Year because he had a strong season last year when the Sox finally called him up. Granted, it was a shortened season, but he really came in and did his thing. But again, we'll see what happens. It's only April, so now we'll jump ahead to the 9th. It's 4-3, and maybe this is Cora's second. I don't know who else was available, but this is probably Cora's second mistake of the season. Why are we bringing in Josh Taylor in a 1-run game?
I don't know. That was really a bad decision.
These are situations. I don't know. I don't think Whitlock was available, but that's like the perfect situation to throw him in.
Yeah.
Barnes,
Barnes wouldn't have been anyway because he pitched the night before. So
right. So, God, I don't think anyone could just be watching this podcast right now and hear Josh Taylor in a 1-run game and just, log off because they know exactly what's going to come up next. So Taylor comes in, Bo Bichette singles, Laguerre walks, and then Kirk and Grichuk for the Jays get back-to-back RBI base knocks to basically put this game away, make it 6-3. Really, I don't understand, again, what the thinking is. Josh Taylor, why would we have him face the heart of the Jays order and Bo Bichette, Vladdy? I mean, are we asking to lose? I mean, it's what it is. Other than that, Castro closes it out for the Jays in the ninth, Anthony Castro. So the Sox end up losing this game 6-3. Toronto wins, and the Red Sox and Jays get a series split. Did I miss anything there?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered everything. Like you said, it's a short series, so there's not as much to cover like we usually do with the 3, or especially a 4 game. But the last few have been pretty long series to cover. So
Right. I have written down here in the ninth, I think for the Sox, maybe the Jays made an error or something, but I've already kind of tuned out what happened in last night's game, even though it was, not even, it's like 12 plus hours ago or whatever. But yeah, the Jays Sox series split. I guess, we'll get into our players of the game now, players of the series, if you want to start that off for you.
I think for me, for our offense, defense kind of starters, I'd say Xander Bogaerts, just because again he had a really hopeful home run in the first game, and in the second game he had that really interesting kind of golf style home run. He's just been solid lately. I love Xander Bogaerts, so he's definitely one of the best players on that offense, and his defensive efforts have been solid too. It was a short series, so I guess maybe I'd say Arroyo too. I mean, I thought he had some nice moments too, a couple nice hits, and did a good job hanging in there. And I really am starting to really like Christian Arroyo. He's one of my favorite, like, underrated, quote unquote, underrated Red Sox players.
Knew that was coming.
I definitely. I was thinking initially he would be kind of like a utility guy, kind of like Eduardo Nunez a couple years ago, where he was solid, but he wasn't like
or like a Brock Holt.
Yeah, or like a Brock Holt too, definitely. But I think Christian Arroyo is really proving himself, and I really like his hustle. I like his offensive and defensive efforts, and yeah. So shout out to him. And then for pitching, obviously, Erod. It's great to see him back. As we said, he pitched a solid game. Didn't like, again, that Cora put him back in for the 7th. I think he should have just stayed out, because that's another home run against him, and that makes, analytically him look a little bit worse, his start. But good start nonetheless. And for relief, I think for relief I'd just give it to Ottavino again, because I'm just happy he's continuing to show up, and he's still had some meh pitch selections, but he hung in there and he didn't give up any runs, and that's really what we need from our relievers. So yeah, it's good to see another guy kind of step up. Obviously we have Barnes and Whitlock and Valdez and a few other guys that are pretty decent, but it's just good to see another guy step up in the pen. So for sure.
Yeah, those are pretty much the same players for me for the Sox. Bogaerts, 2 home runs in the series and the 2 games. He put away the game in game 1, and up until the point in game 2, he wasn't really doing anything, but that home run was clutch because it put us right back in the game. Then an honorable mention on offense for me is Marwin Gonzalez, who we just talked about Arroyo being a versatile player. Marwin's been doing a lot of the same for us too, playing multiple positions. He really kept us in that game last night when we had no business being in it with the doubles and back-to-back innings. So props to him. And then pitching Erod, just another solid outing. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. Not much more else you can ask for. So how about for the Blue Jays, your players of the series?
This is tough. I don't know. A lot of that's tough. I want to say Bo Bichette, but he kind of had a few defensive errors where he kind of overthrew or whatever. So it's kind of tough because like he played really good on the offensive end. Obviously, he was a solid bat and he hung in there, and obviously had some pretty bad pitches thrown against him, like almost the headshot and whatnot. I don't know. Biggio was decent. It's kind of tough. I'm actually kind of struggling. Like typically I have a set guy, but I feel like as this series was shorter, it's tougher. Like it was for the Red Sox too. I don't know, honestly. Like probably Cavan Biggio. I thought he had a solid series. I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of tough because it was so short. But like last series, it was so clear.
Right. So I have Randall Grichuk for the Jays being my offensive pick because he homered off Erod in game 1, and he pretty much put the game away in game 2 with the RBI single in the ninth. My honorable mention was for Boba Fett, but I gave him an asterisk because of the throwing errors like you talked about, so that kind of held him back for me. And then Tommy Malone yesterday, just coming off he gave up 2 runs, but he did really well after the opener. Thornton came in, so I gave him the pitching nod. And yeah, those were my players for the Sox and the Jays. But now I guess we'll preview the series against Seattle. We got a 4-game set coming up against them. First game is tonight. Pivetta will be pitching for the Sox against Justin Dunn. Then we have Martin Perez for game 2, Evaldi for game 3, and Erod for game 4. So how do you think that series is going to go for the Sox? Keep in mind the Mariners also got out to a hot start this year, as we talked about before the podcast. They have a few of those guys. I know we were talking about it. I already forget their names, but if you want to talk about some of their best players, go for it.
I got to pull up I forget some of the roster. Hold on. Let me pull up.
Like I said, Kyle Seager was like the only guy I remembered.
Yeah, Seager's solid. Kyle Lewis, their center fielder, right fielder. He had
rookie of the year, right?
Yeah, I believe he was AL Rookie of the Year last year. He's a solid outfielder. I believe will be his second game today coming back, because I think his first game of this season was the 20th against the Dodgers. So it'll be good to see him back, see how he does. Really good defensive efforts from him. Mitch Haniger has been, or Haniger, I don't know how to say his last. I think it's Mitch Haniger.
Haniger, yep.
Yeah, he's been off to a solid start. I believe he's their best hitter thus far. I think he's hitting like 315 or something. So nothing like incredible, but he's a solid bat for them. I believe Marco Gonzalez has been okay for them, their pitcher. Justin Dunn, I'm looking at him now to see how he's done. He's pretty young.
How's Dunn done?
Yeah. So Dunn, at least for tomorrow, if we're talking pitchers, he's not a horrible pitcher. He's got 1 win, a 3.72 ERA, 2 games thus far. So he must have been bailed out with a bullpen. He's also pretty young. He's only 25. Career-wise, he's 5-1. So he's also a Boston College grad. So shout out to Justin Dunn,
representing the hometown. Hopefully he loses though.
Yeah.
How do you think? How many games do you think we're going to win in this 4-game set?
So I'm not exactly sure how great the Mariners pitching staff is. I know the White Sox have excellent pitchers, as we went over in that series. They've got a really
Giolito.
Yeah, Giolito. Obviously, he was horrible this game, but Giolito is an ace. Cease isn't terrible. Keuchel is still solid. He's not as good as he was back in like his Astros 2015, 2017 days, but they have some nice pitchers, the White Sox and the Blue Jays do too. Obviously, we faced Ryu, so he's obviously an ace as well. I don't know if the Mariners necessarily have like an ace. The Red Sox kind of do. I mean, this year, it's kind of Evaldi and Chris Sale when he gets back, if he pitches like he did, prior to the Tommy John injury. But I think the Sox, honestly, if they really put in good offense, put in good defense, I think if their starting pitchers deliver, I think they could take 3 of 4. I know, as we just talked about, Justin Dunn, the pitcher for tonight, is relatively young. He's not terrible. I mean, 3.72 ERA is not bad, but I think the Sox could take advantage of that, of a youthful guy. And we'll see how he does. But at the same time, Pivetta hasn't been the greatest. He's been a little inconsistent. So we kind of have to see how Nick Pivetta does. Martin Perez, same thing. His last outing against the White Sox was kind of rough. Not a good Perez day. So with him, it could be I feel like if the Sox again put in the effort and win 3 out of 4, I think the game they lose will either be with Perez or Pivetta on the mound. I think Evaldi, that game they should win because he's been pitching really well, and I think Erod, if he pitches as well as he's been, and they give him enough runs for a comfort like a cushion, I think they should be able to do that. But again, it could be a split, but I'm gonna say 3 out of 4 just because I think the Red Sox want to really take advantage of having two of their best pitchers and two guys that are meh. So
I'm with you on the 3 out of 4. I think we'll win game 1 tonight because Pivetta, besides the start last time against the White Sox, which he wasn't great, but he wasn't good. I think we can win tonight. I think Perez is the game that we're probably going to look at losing, which is game 2 tomorrow night. And then for the back end of the 4-game set, we have Evaldi and Erod, which really two of our best pitchers at the moment. Obviously, with Sale being out, that'll change come summer. But for now, those are our two best pitchers in the rotation. So hopefully they can put together good outings and we can get some wins. So I don't see why we can't get 3 or 4 here. That's just me. I still feel like the offense is going to do their thing. We'll see though. I mean, anything can happen, but I'm with you. I think 3 or 4 is a safe bet. So yeah, I mean, that's really it. One last thing I wanted to talk about is should the Red Sox release Garrett Richards? If I was talking about this with a friend last night, he's got one more start in April. If he continues to struggle, granted, he's only on 1-year contract. He paid him $10 million. I just found that out last night. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why I call him Chaim Bloom is like, oh, I'll give you $10 million to Garrett Richards, who really was never. I think he was good his rookie year with Anaheim, but he's really struggled his whole career ERA wise and statistically. But thank God it's only a 1-year contract. But getting back to my point, if he has one more bad start here in April, do we just cut ties with him and designate him for assignment? Because I'll tell you, I'd much rather give his spot at this moment to Tanner Houck or Garrett Whitlock, who apparently we're trying to turn into a starter.
Yeah, I honestly would agree. Like you said too, I actually like Tanner Houck. I think he'll give you a better game than Richards does at this point. And his starting performances have been significantly better than what we've got from Richards. And again, with Garrett Whitlock too, I know they're kind of, priming him for that starting role potentially. I personally think they should, or I honestly, I think they should because that's a pricey contract. He's not delivering. And I really hope there's like incentives with that. Like,
I hope it's like only $6 million, but up to $10 million and like incentives.
Yeah, I hope it's like 6 guaranteed, and there's like, yeah, that'd be a little.
I hope Chaim's not that stupid because I saw this offseason we signed Richards. I'm like, okay, let's see what he does. But I looked up his contract last night during his awful start, and I'm like, we paid him $10 million? Like, what the heck? But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I could see Chaim maybe just actually, I don't see Chaim cutting him or designating him for assignment, but I would just not mind if he puts together another bad start, just the Red Sox admitting, like, yeah, this was a mistake, and like we give our spot to someone who's a lot younger and has more potential, because as the Red Sox have said on multiple occasions, and as the fans know, this is kind of a rebuilding year. While we're off to a good start, we really don't expect to be true contenders until either next year or the year after. So why not just throw in Houck in there maybe in a month or so, or maybe fully convert Whitlock to a starter and see what they have. Are you planning on legally changing your name after last night's start from Garrett?
No, not yet. But if he pitches like that a few more times, I might consider it genuinely. So, state of Massachusetts, expect a call. We might be discussing things real soon.
Yep. We'll revisit that at the end of April. So that's going to do it for this series recap. Once again, pretty quick one. Quick series for the Sox. As we predicted, probably the most predictable series for the Sox in recent memory. Series split. We took game 1. Jays took game 2. That's going to do it. Once again, I invite everyone to absorb the subscribe and the like buttons here. Once again, we will be having Celtics and Bruins recaps coming in the future. I know I keep just saying that it's a general statement, but I'm looking to do recaps for the final 5 games of the season for both of those teams, and then do playoff series recaps. I think that'd be fun. And then we'll have reality TV recaps coming up soon, later in the summer. And also me and one of my friends from college, Andrew, who's been on the podcast, will be doing a series where we interview people. So more shows will be coming to the podcast. I appreciate you guys for being patient on that end because I'm in school still. Both me and Ricky are rounding the corner with school. Got like a couple weeks left, so that'll be good. More shows will be coming in the summer, more content. That'll do it. Thanks everyone so much for watching. Thank you again, Ricky, for joining me. We will be doing this again a little bit later. Sometime next week, we will be recapping the 4-game set against the Mariners. Alrighty, everyone. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments what you liked, what you didn't like, what you like about us, what you didn't like about us. Let Garrett Richards know what we're talking about him about. That doesn't make any sense. Let Garrett Richards know that we're thinking about him. Same with Adam Ottavino. We know they listen to this podcast all the time. So, alrighty, guys. Take it easy. Have a good one.